From hot and steamy Baltimore, Maryland, it's time for White Sox baseball. It's the first of two featuring the White Sox against the Baltimore Orioles. Hi, this is Chuck Swirsky filling in for the Hawk, Ken Harrelson, joined by the 1980 Cy Young Award winner right here in Baltimore, the great Steve Stone. And Steve, I know that never gets old, does it? But let's talk about Jose Abreu. He is swinging a red-hot bat.
Sox have been waiting for the big man to come through consistently. They knew he was going to do it. They just didn't know when, and it turned around for him in Toronto. He gets a fastball from R.A. Dickey, which is a novelty in itself, and he hits it out of the ballpark. At that point, it's a 3-run homer, and the Sox took the lead. Then he hits one strategically right into the sun. And it works out very well because it scores 2 on a double. And fortunately for Jose, that one fell. So that's what he did in the series against the Blue Jays. He hit .308, he hit a home run, but the 6 runs batted in was big. He also scored 3, and the flying feet of Jose Abreu very much in evidence as he recorded his second triple of the year.
All right, one of the finest pitchers in Major League Baseball gets the call today for the White Sox.
Chris Sale going to the mound in the first game of a doubleheader. Now, they talk about perhaps rain in the second game, so they have to get the first one over, and Chris Sale is the man for the job. Last time out, he threw the ball fairly well. He didn't have a lot of support behind him, and Minnesota wound up winning that game. But overall, when you go 8 innings, you only give up 3 runs. That's a pretty good performance. And Chris did every bit of that. But unfortunately, like some of the starting pitchers, not a whole lot of runs scored behind him. He gave up only 5 hits in the 8 innings. The big number, just 1 walk with 10 strikeouts and 3 earned runs. But Chris Sale recorded his 20th career game with 10 or more strikeouts. He's never beaten the Baltimore Orioles. Granted, it's been a limited sample, but this is a good team, especially when they can use Delman Young against a left-hander. He's in the lineup today, so we'll see what happens with Chris, but we have to wish him the best and hope it's quick.
No doubt about that. So sit back and enjoy the first of two. Chuck Swirsky, Steve Stone, first pitch of the moment from Baltimore.
the most live sports. And on a very humid day in Baltimore, let's take a look at how Robin is going to line up our Sox for the first of two. Adam Eaton leading it off with Melky Cabrera in the 2 spot. Then Jose Abreu hitting third, and he's hit safely in 20 of his last 22. Adam LaRoche, the DH. Alexi Ramirez at shortstop. J.B. Shuck, who had a good series in Toronto after Avisario left with a knee problem. Then Gordon Beckham, Tyler Flowers, and Carlos Sanchez rounded out. The defense and how they're going to line up behind Tyler Wilson. Steve Pearce, Adam Jones, and Delman Young in the outfield with Machado, Hardy, Cabrera, and Davis in the infield. Caleb Joseph behind the plate, and Tyler Wilson on the hill. There are the numbers at AAA in Norfolk. He was 2-4, but a fine ERA of 3.29 in 8 starts. Opponents hit .274. And one of the reasons why he's given up more hits than innings pitched is there's not one thing that he'll do that will jump out at you. It's an adequate fastball. It's a decent slider, which sometimes he breaks a little bigger and makes it into a curveball, but doesn't call it that. He also has a changeup, but his strongest attribute is his ability to move the ball around, and he has a real good understanding of what he has and doesn't try to use that big fastball by anybody because it's not going to be there. The umpires for the game this afternoon: Toby Basner behind the plate, crew chief Larry Vanover at first, Ron Culpa is at second, and Vic Carapazza is at third. So the Orioles believing mightily that they're going to win the East. Last year they did. And I think the Sox believe that before it's all said and done, they're going to be knocking at the door in the Central. So with both teams looking for some momentum, we're ready to play baseball. I'm ready to turn it over to my play-by-play partner, Chuck Swirsky.
All right, Steve, thank you, and good afternoon. It's a beautiful day for baseball. A little steamy there, Steve. It's going to be, what, 88 today?
This is Baltimore. This is the kind of weather that you come to appreciate over the course of a long season.
Adam Eaton stepping in against Tyler Wilson from the University of Virginia. And the first pitching we're underway here in Baltimore. Eaton, over the last 2 ball games against the Jays in that series, went 3 for 9, scored 3 runs. Overall on the season, a homer, 5 RBIs, 236, slap foul. 0-2 to Adam Eaton.
The ball's going to be very lively. It usually is during the daytime. It certainly is when it's humid. Maybe humidity at night will hold the ball up in the gaps, but not so today. And what wind there is blowing straight in toward home plate out of left center.
0-2 pitch. So the Orioles, Steve, going with not 1 but 2 rookies in this doubleheader on the mound.
And quite obviously, when you throw guys who haven't been around very much, no Sox hitter has seen either of these pitchers ever.
Fouled back. Wilson made his major league debut on May the 20th. He got the win in relief against the Marlins. And Steve, as you mentioned, he also spent time in Norfolk. Their AAA ball club went 2-4 in 8 starts. An Oriole ball club that is trying, as Steve mentioned, trying to repeat as American League Eastern Division champs. Soft out to J.J. Hardy.
Last time we were here, my partner Ken Harrelson and I did a game that nobody attended.
What was that like, Steve?
It was a very strange situation. And probably the best description, I believe, was by Adam Eaton when he said it felt almost like that game played by the professionals in the Field of Dreams. Because there was no noise, just the crack of the bat, and no fandom whatsoever.
Stepping in is Melky Cabrera. Had 4 hits in 3 games in the Jays series. Still looking for that elusive extra base hit. He's gone 88 at bats without one. 1 ball and a strike went out here in the top of the first in Baltimore.
Delman Young sometimes is an adventure in right field, but Adam Jones in center can catch just about everything. The one thing about Adam is the knee is not 100%, but he's a lot like Alexi Ramirez in that you have to pry him out of the starting lineup with a crane, and he's certainly well enough to start. This is one of the keys to their ball club, if not the key to their ball club.
Slapped on the ground to second base. Cabrera over to Davis. We have 2 down. But, Steve, there's something to be said for players like that. You mentioned Ramirez, or in the case of Adam Jones, I love players who don't want to get out of the lineup, no matter injury.
There's nothing that a manager likes better than coming to the ballpark and knowing you've got a few guys in your lineup, and hopefully more than a few, but a few guys who you just write their name in the lineup. You don't have to worry about them. And they give the manager a safety net. He might have to revolve around them, but with Adam Jones, he's going to be there.
So Jose at the plate raised his average 10 points in that ball game the other day against the Blue Jays to 284. He went 3 for 5 on Wednesday. With the weather changing, Steve, that's good news for Jose.
I think he's going to be in line, obviously, for another big year. You can't be that good a hitter and be held down all that long. They're playing him in the infield as a dead pull hitter. And it's kind of interesting because we've seen him use that right side a lot, poking the ball through the right side to drive home runs. He can hit the ball there if he wants to, but what Buck Showalter is trying with this shift is trying to entice him to give up his power. But as we say that, Everett Cabrera, the second baseman, has moved over and filled that hole on the right side.
Here's the 0-2 pitch. From a mental standpoint, see, when you were pitching and you saw a shift, from a batter's perspective, when you were pitching to a guy like Abreu or someone in your generation, did it affect them mentally that they tried to do too much?
I don't think Abreu does.
Hidden hole, nice diving play by Cabrera. He gets Abreu. Gorgeous defensive play by Cabrera at second base. So the White Sox go 1-2-3 in the first. Baltimore coming up next.
Machado, Paredes, and Jones at the top, with Young, Davis, and Pierce in the middle. Then Hardy, Joseph, and Cabrera rounded out. The defense behind Chris Sale, left to right. Cabrera, Eaton, and Shuck in the outfield, with Beckham, Ramirez, Sanchez, and Abreu in the infield. Tyler Flowers gets a nod behind the plate, and Chris Sale on the hill. He's looking for his 4th win. This is his 9th start. Opponent sitting 240, which is a good number. A great strikeout to walk ratio, 54-14. So you're averaging over 9 strikeouts per 9 innings. That's very good.
And Manny Machado stepping in. He's hit safely 16 of his last 18 games on the season. 6 homers, 19 RBIs, batting .279. The type of player Machado is, not only defensively, Steve, although he's committed 9 errors at third, but offensively, as Sale winds and delivers. Give me an idea. Is he an elite player in this league, on the cusp of being an elite player, or where?
He was becoming an elite player, and then he tore up his knee and had surgery. And he hasn't been that player coming back. I think the 9 errors is an illustration of the fact that the legs still aren't 100%. Because at third base, you don't have to be fast. It's a reaction position, and you have to have strong enough legs to make that quick move left or right. He might not quite have that yet.
1-2 pitch. Swung on down the left field line. Foul.
A couple of years ago, Manny Machado was a doubles machine. I mean, that's all he did was get up and hit the ball hard, and was just crushing double after double after double. But then a lot of physical problems.
Knee surgery on both knees last year. To illustrate and amplify what you're talking about, Steve. 1-2 pitch. Just fouled off.
Well, when I tell you he was a doubles machine, that was in 2013. He had 51 doubles. And that is a lot of 51? 51 doubles, 14 home runs, 71 driven in. He hit 283, and then he was on the verge of becoming a great player.
At the ripe old age of 22. Let's talk a little about Chris Sale and your assessment of the type of season he's having.
I think Chris is still fighting his way back from not having any spring training. You know, when you have a couple of cracks and a sprain in that ankle, you're not able to put any weight on it, and so you're not able to get your breaking ball where you want it to be. And I think that's in the early going some things that he's been battling with. But he's a fierce competitor with great stuff.
1-2. Swing and a miss. Foul tip held on by Flowers. Went out here for the Orioles.
We told you that just before the pitch, Everett Cabrera moved over to his left. He did that, and Buck Showalter changes defenses a lot. This is an outstanding play, and how he set up before they got to 2 strikes, he had no chance to make it. But with 2 strikes, he knew that Abreu would be protecting. He moved to his left and was able to make a spectacular play and get out of the inning.
He's going to bring on Jimmy Paredes. Paredes, Steve Stone, second in the American League in batting at .353. We're going to see Prince Fielder of Texas, who leads the AL in hitting, at .368 next week. Paredes is putting up some major numbers for this Oriole team. 0-2 the count.
They really can't find a position for him.
And why is that?
Because he doesn't have any defensive talent. And that's a problem.
Yes.
But again, you even mentioned yesterday, if a guy can hit, you'll find a place for him, and they have.
And Paredes goes down on strikes.
Now Paredes does have some speed, and yesterday Buck Showalter decided that the double steal was in order, and he dives by and safely by Castro, and so a big play by Paredes, and they won that game 5-4. That turned out to be a very big play.
Let's go bring on Adam Jones. In the generation you played, which in my opinion is the greatest generation of Major League Baseball in that late 60s, 70s era, as Adam Jones steps in against Chris Sale. Called strike 1. Rod Carew stole a number of bases at home, did he not?
He would do that. The toughest thing to do is a straight steal at home, but on the double steal it works a lot better.
Check swing. Did he go around? 0-2.
They got Adam Jones originally from Seattle. Much to the dismay of the Mariners, Adam Jones has grown into one of the better players in all of baseball.
Swing and a miss, and Chris Sale strikes out the side. So Chris Sale mows him down. We'll go to the top of the second in Baltimore. Adam LaRoche coming up next right here on WGN TV.
Sponsored by Jeff Vukovich, your local nationwide insurance agent serving the area for 37 years. To join the nation, visit jeffvuk.com because Nationwide is on your side.
Rookie Tyler Wilson, who retired. The lineup for the White Sox in the first, Eaton Cabrera Abreu, will now take a look at Adam LaRoche. LaRoche with 2 hits on Tuesday in that series against the Jays. Followed up by 2 hits on Wednesday with a big base hit in the 10th inning in that Wednesday win.
Cabrera is way back on the outfield grass in a very severe shift with Hardy on the first base side of second. There you see the defense as we pan around. In the outfield, however, they're playing him straight away, and Pierce is playing him way off the line. He's in the left center field.
1-0 pitch. So LaRoche batting .225 with 4 homers and 17 RBIs. This is a Baltimore ball club that went through a major offseason shuffle. They lost Nelson Cruz to Seattle, had a big contract with the Mariners. And they also lost Andrew Miller, who did a sensational job coming out of the pen, signed a free agent of the Yankees.
They pretty much told both of those guys when they got them that they were going to be hired guns. And when the season was over, they were going to let both of them go. And that's a lot for a division winner to give up, because those two guys have had great years this year.
Up high on LaRoche. Cruz signed 4 years, $57 million. For the Mariners, Miller gets 4 years, $36 with the Yankees. Cruz leading the American League in homers with 17. And the guy down the road, Bryce Harper, playing for Washington, hit his 18th last night. Here's LaRoche. And that is a fly ball, and that's going to hit the wall in left field. And LaRoche will glide into second base with a stand-up double.
Because of the shift, Pierce was playing into left center. There was plenty of room down the line. Normally, this would have been caught easily by a left fielder playing a straightaway left field. But when we showed you the defense, it gave Adam a chance to just hit the ball, not even down the line. And easily, a couple hops against the wall. So a promising way to start the second.
Yes, that's LaRoche with a leadoff double here, top of the second. Ramirez at the plate. 2 for his last 16. Alexei batting .244.
I think there'll be more than a few runs scored by the Sox today against Wilson, but this is a situation where Alexei probably not thinking about a bunt, but he should be thinking about hitting the ball to the right side.
1-0 pitch. Tyler Wilson now delivering to Ramirez, and it's a 2-0 count on Alexei. Overall, Steve, your thoughts on this Oriole pitching staff collectively?
Well, you can't judge it by today because you're seeing two rookies, but they've had some injuries which have hurt them. I think the pitching staff is okay, and that's illustrated by the fact that the Orioles come in just under a 4-point ERA as a staff. They're 10th in the American League in pitching. Not as good as they would certainly like here, especially after losing on offense out of Cruz, and Wieters is not back yet.
Yeah, he's in rehab in Bowie. Here's Ramirez with a lazy fly ball to center field. Camped under it is Adam Jones. Take it off LaRoche for third. We're going to have a plate, and he is out.
Well, we pretty much showed you that Adam Jones can do just about everything. And that time he threw it right on the button. Machado waiting there, and Adam, without the best speed around, doesn't anticipate a throw that good, but that good it is. He just leans back, sails it all the way to third. It's there in plenty of time, and Machado puts the tag on. So Adam thought that he could make it rather easily. Joe McEwing telling him to get down. You can't get down low enough when a throw is that good.
So very quickly we have 2 outs now in the top of the second, scoreless ball game. J.B. Shuck at the plate takes a cold strike. 2 hits on Tuesday, 2 more on Wednesday. See, he's now batting .295. He's done a nice job.
And overall, he's been terrific in whatever Robin has decided to ask him to do. He's played a good outfield. He's fast. He can steal a base for you. And I think he's playing now like he showed us in spring training. He came there with no promises. He came there with just an invitation to Major League camp and a let's see what you can do, son. Well, he did plenty, and he made the ball club.
1-1 pitch.
J.B. Shuck is the Chuck/Hawk or Hawk/Chuck.
Hawk/Chuck.
Pick to click. I took Melky because I take him every day. And Alexei Ramirez is the Cruz choice. So it's 6, 5, and 4 in the scoring.
Wilson, the delivery. Ground ball. Second base. Cabrera up with it. Throws to Davis. And once again, the White Sox scoreless here. We'll go to the bottom of the second here in Baltimore, right here on WGN TV. Bottom of the second inning here in Baltimore. Delman Young stepping in. Young on the season, no homers, 11 RBIs, batting .287. The much traveled Delman Young, Steve Stone.
Just don't throw him the fastball down.
Let's see, he's played for Tampa Bay, Minnesota, Detroit, Philadelphia, Tampa Bay again. Hit .302 last year in 83 games. Sale, who struck out the side in the first. He's got to go in early.
Sale's thrown him a couple of very good straight changes. Last year, what Young did for this team, he went 10 for 20 as a pinch hitter, and that cemented his credentials. The guy can hit off the bench.
Easy ground ball for Alexei to Jose, and there's one out here in the bottom of the second.
Every Monday this season, the White Sox will have a flash sale in which 200 seats in select lower level will be available for just $10. Each sale runs for 24 hours or until they sell out. For full details, visit whitesox.com/flash sale.
Chris Davis stepping in now against Chris Sale. Davis homered twice in the Orioles' victory yesterday against the Houston Astros. Davis on the season, 10 homers, 26 RBIs, batting .216. He has struck out 64 times, walked 16, but the Orioles will take that home run power.
If you throw fastballs away, and that was one, although Chris took something off the fastball, when you go get Chris Davis up and in, is where you get him. He'll jam himself. He won't catch up to it up there.
He told reporters yesterday, Steve, that he's got to give himself a chance to hit balls in the zone. What does he mean by that?
That he's swinging at a lot of pitches out of the zone, thinking about hitting home runs.
The pitch. Right back near us.
Yesterday, he hit a pair. That was a spinning slider that didn't get to inside, and he took it out. And that was a fastball that was attempted to be inside, but he crushed it. This is a very strong young man out of the Texas organization.
Here's a ground ball and a 4-3 play. With the shift, that was Ramirez playing the second base hole with the shift on. So give it a 6-3 call. And that's going to bring on now Steve Pearce, along with Chris Davis, being retired. Bob Ramirez, Steve Pearce, who came up in the Pittsburgh organization.
He really last year came into his own. He's very aggressive early in the count on fastballs.
Fly ball to right. Chuck underneath it. Makes the grab. So another great job by Chris Sale. 1, 2, 3 has retired all 6 batters. We go to the third at the moment here in Baltimore.
The Sox take on the Rangers. White Sox are offering specially priced tickets to all Indiana residents, their families, and their friends. To purchase tickets, visit whitesox.com/NWI Sox fans.
Chuck Swirsky along with Steve Stone, the first of 2 here in Baltimore. In the top of the third, Chris Beckham facing Tyler Wilson. Gordon Breck at the plate. Beg your pardon, is Gordon Beckham. He's really done a nice job at third base.
I think he was terrific in Toronto, getting an opportunity to play a bit more.
Beckham swung on, a little dribbler out in front. Wilson. He'll retire Beckham.
That was a good off-speed pitch by Wilson, who's shown in the early going that he's not going to be able to throw many fastballs by our hitters, but he's also shown that he can move the ball around, and what I like about him is he not only uses in and out, but he uses up and down. And if you can handle 4 quadrants as a pitcher, you're probably going to be a whole lot tougher to hit.
So Gordon Beckham retired. Tyler Flowers at the plate. Flowers in the Blue Jays series had a couple of hits in the middle game of that series. Chris Sale, though, he's got it going.
Chris has got very good stuff today. He's using that slider to best advantage, and as usual with Chris Sale, probably the last thing you think about unless you're a hitter is that straight change, and he's using that exceptionally well today.
The 0-1 pitch. White Sox squandered a great opportunity when they had that leadoff double in the last inning.
Doesn't happen too much, and then LaRoche thrown out at third base on a great throw by Adam Jones. So that fastball with good movement inside, and Tyler went out to get it. Thought better of it as he felt that it was coming inside off the plate, but couldn't check his swing. And there you see, 2/3 of the time, Tyler Wilson is throwing strikes.
He's outside, and a 2-2 count with one out here in the top of the third in Baltimore. Here's the pitch. Did it hit him?
When you're in a 2-strike hole, this isn't all bad. Gets him on the inside of the left arm. Inside the right arm, excuse me. And he'll trot to first base. He's pointing to his bicep. Here's a guy with a little bit of a sore leg.
In Carlos Sanchez. Sanchez doubled on Tuesday, batting .184. Here's the pitch. Just outside.
Carlos got his chance to play because Micah Johnson was not playing defense like they felt he should. They sent him down to work on it. Sanchez was having a great run at AAA, and he got his opportunity.
See why we have this chance. Big Sox fan watching our game today on WGN. And that's John Montgomery, underwent some surgery, and we wish him all the best in the recuperative period. I want to welcome all of our viewers on WGN TV. Chuck Swirsky, Steve Stone. We're in the top of the third in Baltimore in the first of two games. Cuts the outside corner.
In a doubleheader in a situation like this, you get to have a 26th man on your roster. And for both games, the 26th man for the Sox is Daniel Webb. I'm sure all of you remember Daniel, who's been in and out of the Sox bullpen, but always had great stuff. Harnessing his control was a problem.
3-1 to count now on Sanchez.
And I think the Sox believe that if Daniel Webb ever does harness his control, he's going to be a big weapon out of the bullpen. So he's getting an opportunity today, and he's available in both games of the doubleheader.
Yes, Don Cooper told me prior to the ball game he just lacks consistency. Here's the pitch. Swung on, going the opposite way to left field. And it's going to be caught by Pierce. So we have two outs. Flowers remains at first. They'll bring on Adam Eaton.
Caleb Joseph goes out to have a talk with his young right-hander. I always preferred when the catcher came out to talk, because catchers are usually pretty big. I didn't set up on the back of the mound, because if he stood on the mound, it gave him another 10 inches towering over me, which he did anyway. So not wanting to look like a Smurf, I used to get on top of the mound and let the catcher stand on the front.
Well, now you know how when I have to stand next to Bill Wennington with the Bulls.
Right. That's not good.
No, it is not very good.
Yeah. Talking to his belt buckle is not ideal.
No.
So in this situation with 2 outs and a runner at first, which is not a great situation to be in, the league average is scoring 12%. The Sox have scored 11%.
There's a pitch off the glove of Wilson into center field. And the runners first and second now for the White Sox with 2 outs.
The second time through the order, Wilson is going to be a bit more vulnerable than he was the first time through. And we are the second time through the order. Adam is starting to hit the ball with a little more consistency. And that one rifled off the glove of Wilson into center field. So a chance for Melky to put the Sox up early.
First and second, 2 outs. Cabrera facing Wilson. Checking the runners and the pitch. 0-1 to count on Melky.
You'd like to see Tyler Flowers get a pretty good secondary lead, because we saw the arm of Jones. That's very good. And the arm of Young, although he's not a great outfielder, he's got a very strong arm in right field. Pierce's arm is okay in left.
Called strike 2. No balls, 2 strikes, 2 outs. Cabrera facing rookie Tyler Wilson here in the top of the 3rd in Baltimore. And the pitch. Swung on, a little looper. And Cabrera with the grab. And we go to the bottom of the 3rd here. White Sox strand 2. Back with more in a moment right here on WGN TV.
It's game day, and you might be today's White Sox fan of the game. White Sox fan photo of the game is brought to you by Beggar's Pizza, now with 22 locations. Visit beggarspizza.com. Beggar's Pizza, they lay it on thick. Well, that would be really good between games here.
Sure would be, Stephen. Thank you.
Like
really good.
Send up 2 pizzas. I'll eat 1 1/2, and you can eat the half of the other.
Is that how it works with a Hawk?
Not exactly, no.
So J.J. Hardy will step in, as Chris Sale has been terrific. He's retired the first 6 hitters in the Oriole lineup. Hardy struggling with his health. He's got a cranky back.
I think that's a big reason why 2 years ago he hit 25 home runs. Last year he hit 9. And that was one of the things they always depended on from J.J. Hardy, was the fact that he had a power bat at shortstop.
2-0 count.
He was always a dependable, very dependable, but not spectacular shortstop. That's one of the reasons why they've kept him around.
Two and one. Well, Hardy spent some time with Milwaukee, had some good seasons for the Brewers. A brief stop in Minnesota. Here's a fly ball. Charge it in from center field, and the catch by Eaton.
One of the reasons why the Brewers let J.J. Hardy go was they were raising a young shortstop by the name of Alcides Escobar. He was coming up through their system. It looked like he was going to be their #1 guy. Then they wanted to acquire Zach Greinke. And Escobar and Lorenzo Cain were in that deal. Turned out to be a great deal for Kansas City, and Greinke threw well for Milwaukee. But they were able to let Hardy go because of Escobar.
Caleb Joseph at the plate. Joseph last year set an Oriole record for catchers homering in 5 consecutive games.
Pretty amazing for a guy not thought of as a hitter. Joseph is back there, and he was their number 2 catcher behind Wieters. When Matt Wieters had arm surgery, Joseph became the number 1 guy. He was always a good catch it, call it, block it, and throw it guy. Last year, he hit the ball out of the park a little bit more than they thought he was going to.
Up high, his brother plays in the Yankee system. But over the years, Steve, they've had some pretty decent catchers. I mean, you pitched a terrific catcher.
That was Rick Dempsey, who I saw before the game today. As you look at Buck Showalter, Rick Dempsey came from the New York Yankees in a trade. But last year, Joseph threw out over 38% of the guys who tried to steal against him, and that was well above league average. So they like him defensively behind the plate.
2-2 the count with 1 out here. Chris Sale has retired all 7 batters he's faced.
And he's done it on a total of 32 pitches, and he's been out of the strike zone 7 times. Good command against a team that he's never beaten.
2-2 pitch by Sale. That ball's well hit to center field. Adam Eaton at the track with the catch.
We told you about a little breeze, that little breeze blowing in slightly from left center field. This ball normally would be out of this ballpark, but the wind and that slight breeze kept it in. So with a foot to spare, Adam goes back on the track, and he makes a nice catch. And Chris is a very happy man because he thought that ball was out, and there is that little bitty breeze that was enough to keep the ball in the yard.
Everett Cabrera in his first season in a Baltimore uniform stepping in against Sale after spending 6 seasons with the Padres. He's at second base.
They just activated Ryan Flaherty, and he's going to be a left-handed platoon player.
Tough play for Alexei. Did he get him? He's safe. An infield single for Everett Cabrera.
The key on this is that he breaks his bat. It slows down the ball. Alexei does the best job he can possibly do. Gets it there as quickly as he can.
On that play, Steve.
Big effort.
Yep.
But third basemen are taught to get everything they can. Gordon couldn't get over there in time and left it to Alexei, who did the best job he could. Just Cabrera too fast.
First base runner for the Orioles after Sale retired the first 8. We have 2 outs here in the bottom of the 3rd in Baltimore in game 1. It's a doubleheader, and then it's off to Houston for a weekend series, a day off Monday. Then we'll be in Arlington starting Tuesday night against Prince Fielder and the Rangers. Manny Machado, as Manny struck out in the first against Sale. Machado hitting .277.
Cabrera 2 for 2 in stolen bases. This Oriole team has not been all that aggressive. They've swiped 17. They've been caught 6 times. You have to worry about Paredes when he gets on. You certainly have to worry about Machado when he gets on. Other than that, they don't run too much.
Swung through that one. It's 1-1 with 2 outs.
Now, we told you the run expectancy of the Sox with a runner at first and 2 outs, and very similar for the Orioles. And the league average remains at 12%.
1-1, 2 outs. Cabrera at first. Machado, the 3rd pick in the 2010 Major League Baseball draft. Number 1 that year, Bryce Harper.
Now, why would you take him number 1?
Oh, no,
What's
Steve.
he done? Just hit his 18th home run yesterday. Outside of that, it's been an okay year for him.
1-1. Fly ball center field. Easy play for Adam Eaton, who's under it. He makes the grab, and the inning is over. Nice job by Chris Sale. We're scoreless here in Baltimore.
You can join the White Sox in their effort to raise awareness on stroke warning signs and the importance of acting fast. FAST, those are the 4 signs of a stroke. So purchase your tickets today by visiting whitesox.com/strikeoutstroke.
Rookie Tyler Wilson on the mound. As Abreu steps in, it'll be Abreu along with LaRoche and Ramirez for the White Sox. No runs, 2 hits, no errors for the White Sox. No runs, a hit by Cabrera. No errors for Baltimore. Again, we're going to see another rookie, Mike Wright, in game 2 for the Orioles.
Completely different pitcher, as Wright has a huge fastball and Wilson does not. That being said, Wilson probably a more complete pitcher because he's had to be. And Wright will rely a lot on that fastball, which he moves anywhere from 92 to 97.
1-1 pitch, nobody out here in the 4th inning for the White Sox. Abreu swing at the miss. You know, this Oriole team, it's going to be interesting to see how Buck Showalter massages this bullpen. They've got a guy in the bullpen, Mattis, who was suspended 8 games. He has appealed that. They're waiting to hear from Major League Baseball for a substance.
And I talked with Buck Showalter about that. A line drive rocket to right at J.J. Hardy.
What's your take on that?
Well, Buck Showalter thinks, number one, that there's a very good chance Mattis might get off without a suspension. And who knows? But he was suspended for having something on him. Now, apparently they couldn't find anything on his arm. Not the case with Will Smith from Milwaukee, who they found the foreign substance was right on the top of his arm. A little too obvious. But Buck thinks that that shouldn't necessarily be a suspension, that the object is for the pitcher to get a good grip on the ball. And they give you a rosin bag, Chuck, and the rosin bag does absolutely nothing but make the ball slipperier for you. So it never seemed to make a great deal of sense to me, and to a whole lot of other pitchers feel the same way.
So what you're saying is it's a slippery slope to discuss this subject.
No, I mean it's fine to discuss it. It's just the question of will they fully enforce it? And now this is what some pitchers told me. Just friends of mine said that there were different ways that you could actually use it without the umpire really being able to check. And that was areas of your pants that the umpire would not come out and actually explore. as opposed to your arm.
Sharply hit ball to Davis, who's going to take it to the bag. But Steve, it's well chronicled. Even Gaylord Perry admitted he used the jelly, so to speak, and he's in the Hall of Fame. And
he said he wouldn't use a foreign substance. It was made right here in the United States. So in that respect, it was not a foreign substance, but it was KY jelly, and he readily admits it. He was a spitballer, and that used to be common. Guys used to put a little tablet in their mouth called slippery elm and use that and throw spitters. Guys have used soap.
Soap?
They use soap. They put it on one of the seams of their pants, and then they rub their fingers with it, and they throw what's called a dry spitter. It acts like a regular spitball, but you just use soap. And again, you put it in an area that the umpire can't check or won't check as he comes to the mound.
0-1 pitch to Ramirez in the dirt. 1-1 with 2 outs here. Kevin Gross, did he not? He was caught with what, sandpaper?
Well, there's been a few caught with a lot of different things.
Joe Niekro had the file.
A lot of different pitchers have used different things.
There's a ground ball deep in the hole. Hardy with a strong throw. And the Sox are retired here in the 4th inning of play. Scoreless here in Baltimore in Game 1 on WGN TV.
.com and click on the WGN Sports Game Zone banner for the latest stats and information. The Sox Game Zone is powered by Robert Morris University, Illinois, serving over 55 athletic teams, more than any other university in the state.
Jimmy Paredes, who struck out in the first, stepping in against Chris Sale here in the bottom of the 4th in Baltimore in Game 1 of a twin bill. Paredes hitting a sizzling .350.
Chris just absolutely baffled him with a straight change the first time up.
The 0-2 pitch. Just inside.
Paredes is not going to walk. 6 walks in 137 at bats. So if it's close, he's going to be swinging.
Swing and a miss, and he gets him for the second time this afternoon.
That time was one of the best sliders Chris Sale has thrown this year. And I say that because it breaks so quickly. It breaks down and in. It stayed there for a bit, and all of a sudden just keeps biting lower, and that's a sign that Chris is starting to feel like the Chris Sale of the last few years, when that slider was unhittable, and missing spring training didn't help him. But it's a very warm, humid day. He was born in Florida. He's used to this, and I got to feel he feels awfully good.
6'6" lefty from Lakeland, Florida is Chris Sale. Adam Jones, as Steve mentioned in the first inning, Adam Jones has really turned into an outstanding big league ball player. Came over from the Mariners, as Steve Stone mentioned, in a 5-for-1 deal. Tillman was also in that trade. Eric Bedard went to the Mariners. There's a fly ball that's going to carry, but Adam Eaton is drifting towards the track. He's going to make the catch. That ball is carrying it.
It is, but fortunately, both of the long drives have been toward left center, where that wind wafting in gently has kept them both in the park. There's a very good chance on another day both of them would have been out. But sometimes you have to use the elements, and Chris has done that.
Delvin Young stepping in now against Chris Sale. It's a line drive, base hit in the left field.
This Oriole team these days is not built like the normal Oriole teams that really dominated baseball for a long time, with homegrown players consistently and guys who understood how to play the game. These days, they're going out and they're getting some guys, making some trades, using some of their younger players to trade, but they're not developing at near the rate they used to develop, and that was the key. It was called the Oriole way. If you got here, they taught you how to play winning baseball in the minor leagues before you got to the major leagues. That was their secret, and then it just vanished. Probably late 80s, early 90s.
Big swing by Chris Davis. We have a lot of time to talk about the Oriole way this afternoon, Steve, but you know, I grew up during the summers here in Baltimore. I stayed with the sports director at the time, Vince Bagley, of WBAL TV, Channel 11 here in Baltimore. And I saw a lot of Oriole games starting the '66 season. Davis swings and misses.
And who was your favorite player in those days?
Brooks Robinson, without any question.
Well, it's easy to have Brooks as their favorite player. He's a Hall of Famer, one of the great third basemen who ever played the game.
Number 5.
But he was also and is a wonderful man.
Yes, he is. From the state of Arkansas. What a gentleman. Here's the 0-2 pitch by Sale. Fouled off.
1970 World Series. This is one of the famous plays of that series. Able to go deep into foul territory. And of course, he was a proponent of the short brim. Taking it out of the ballpark, and what a defender.
You probably saw him around a lot here in Baltimore when you pitched here, Steve.
I did. He was around the ball club a lot. He certainly helped Doug DeSensei play third base. Again, a testament to the fact that Brooks, who wasn't fast, was so quick to both sides that it made him, along with great hands, it made him one of the great third basemen ever. Some people would say he was the greatest third baseman ever.
Well, Steve, you pitched against, let's see, you saw Mike Schmidt, you saw George Brett.
I did. Didn't like exactly what I saw both of them because they could really hit. But Mike Schmidt was excellent with the glove, as well as hitting lots of home runs. There is the man who managed me, Earl Weaver, number 4, who's passed away. What a great manager. And there's number 5, Brooks Robinson, and number 20 is Frank Robinson.
1-2 pitch, 2-2. You know, I'm going to give you a little trivia here now, Steve. I was at the press conference when Earl Weaver was named manager of the Orioles in 1968 at the Belvedere Hotel. They fired Hank Bauer in July of '68 and replaced him with Earl Weaver.
And at that time, nobody had any idea who Earl was.
Correct. There's a deep fly ball. Right field. Underneath it is Shuck. And that will end the inning. Looking at the start, but just a routine fly ball. We go to the 5th in a moment right here on WGN TV. Steve Stone in the first of two here in Maryland.
J.B. Shuck's going to take a look down at Manny Machado at third base and find out where he sets up. Right now, he's absolutely even with the bag, and that gives you a lot of room to drop a bunt down that way. If Machado starts to move in, well, then you reconsider.
Shuck takes a cold strike.
Wilson has not used much of the middle of the plate because of his velocity, which isn't overwhelming. He moves the ball in, out, up, and down, and so far only 2 hits by Sox hitters.
Very quickly he's in the hole at 0-2. Each team with 2 hits in a scoreless ball game here in the top of the 5th. Anytime Sale's on the mound, you know you're going to get a quick ball game.
And Wilson is matching him pitch for pitch, so this so far has turned out to be a great pitcher's duel.
And you saw a great pitching duel with Sale against the Indians just over a week ago.
Sale and Kluber was a masterpiece of a game, absolutely living up to its billing when 2 wonderful pitchers go head to head.
Right up the middle for a base hit. J.B. Shuck continues that torrid hitting.
They kept the shift on even with 2 strikes. Probably not a great idea because with 2 strikes, hitters become much more defensive, and JB not trying to pull this ball. He just wants to make contact. Takes it right back up the middle. Fortunately for Wilson, he's able to get out of the way. We've seen a whole lot of pitchers hit last year and this year because their follow-throughs put them in a non-fielding position.
That's a strike 1 to Gordon Beckham. The man on first, nobody out here in the 5th inning. Shuck take it off. Here's the throw to second. He is safe.
JB got one in Toronto. He gets one here. Caleb Joseph took a while to get that throw off, and the throw was high. JB gets a good jump, but the throw is up high. He's able, after his hand slipped off the bag, to keep his foot on the bag. And now, for the second time in the ball game, a runner at second and nobody out.
With an 0-2 count on Beckham, the pitch. He goes to right field, and that will go foul.
Joe McEwing with a couple of quick words to J.B. Shuck. JB now 3 for 3 in stolen bases.
And that has to please the White Sox because they are last in the American League in stolen bases.
There's no doubt. They get another base runner in the lineup when he's in the lineup, and another left-hand bat against a right-handed starter.
0-2 pitch inside. Robin Ventura told reporters prior to the ballgame about Shuck that he likes his IQ. Now you hear a lot about IQ in basketball terminology, but in baseball, Robin Ventura said he's just a smart player, knows exactly strengths, weaknesses, has a really good understanding and a feel for the game. He's at second with nobody out. Second with a foul tip strikeout. So the runner stays at second with 1 out for Flowers.
Good sweeping breaking ball. It is on the outside corner. Very good pitch by Wilson. Unfortunately, Gordon could make no contact. And Chuck, you talk about baseball acumen, we call it, and there's Robin who talked about it. For years, we started to have the mantra, best athlete available. And all organizations were always looking for that great athlete that they could mold into a baseball player. There were some organizations that continued, yes, they would take the great athlete in the top rounds, but they then looked for baseball players. Not necessarily the best athletes, but guys who understood how to play the game.
Machado has a rocket for an arm, and he holds the runner at second.
Manny this year, one of the reasons why he has as many errors as he has is because he has an unusual throw. It's a lot like Adrian Beltre, who we'll see on this road trip, in that he throws from the side. Because he spent so much time away, that throw wasn't near as accurate as it used to be. You watch Beltre throw from down there, and it's right in the middle of the first baseman's chest. Machado was the same way. And in fact, a lot of people around Baltimore said that he did grade out defensively, a lot like Brooks Robinson. But these days, he's gotten a little shakier at third.
9 errors on the season for Machado. Right around second for the White Sox now with 2 outs. They have been unable, Steve, to advance the runner after Shuck got a base hit, then stole second.
Similar situation in the second inning, only it took a great throw by Jones to cut down LaRoche, trying to tag up and go from second to third.
2 outs for Sanchez, who fly to left in the third. Swung on. Here's Davis, and the flip to Wilson. That's going to retire the side. We go to the bottom of the fifth. Scoreless ball game here in Baltimore with the White Sox and Orioles in the first of 2. A well-pitched game by both hurlers. As Chris Sale taking on Tyler Wilson. Chris Sale has been magnificent, as Wilson has. Steve Pearce leading off for the Orioles.
Pierce swung at the first pitch the first time. He did not get a fastball this time, so he didn't swing.
He got 3 homers in his last 8 ball games. Takes inside with a 2-0 count.
Last year, a renaissance year for Pierce. He had 293 with 21 home runs, 49 driven in. So given an opportunity to play when nobody else really would, he made the most of it, and that changeup catches the inside corner.
You told me a great story off the air about Pearson. You like players like this who just stretch and claw to get to the big league level.
Nothing's ever given to a guy with this kind of talent. All he needs is an opportunity. Some guys never get that opportunity, and they leave baseball wondering what might have been had they had the chance. Pierce might have been that guy. There's a lot of guys like that. But he came here. They had some injuries. He got his opportunity, and Buck Showalter put him in the lineup, and he couldn't get him out of the lineup. I mean, when you hit close to 300 with 21 home runs, you're getting the job done.
On the season, batting 189. But you need these type of players, not only on the field to mix and match, to fill in, but also with the clubhouse. Because from an appreciation level, I mean, they really get after it every day, knowing that it took so much and so hard to get to the major league level. This is a very tough sport, to say the least, as Pierce goes down swinging.
Another great slider from Chris Sale.
By the way, Steve, you know, every time I come to Baltimore, people are saying, where's the statue for Steve Stone? Who won the Cy Young?
Well, the statue, I'm not sure that's ever going to be here. I wish I had a slider like Chris Sale, however.
Here's J.J. Hardy. 0 for 1. Flat out to center in the third. Ah, the good old days, Steve.
That's the All-Star game. And that's Dave Kingman that I struck out on a pitch that was 10 feet high.
You know, Steve, you won, what, 25 games that year?
Yeah, it was a combination of a lot of different things, Chuck. One was a great baseball team. The Orioles won 100 games that year. And I got an opportunity because of some injuries. Mike Flanagan got hurt. Dennis Martinez, who went on to win 245 games, got hurt. I got 37 starts and pitched for a team that absolutely did not allow me to lose. And one of the key factors was they didn't make many mistakes. They executed perfectly. The defense was terrific. And we had a bullpen that got just about everybody out.
Well, only 2 pitchers, folks, have won 25 or more games in a season since 1980. Number 1, Steve Stone, the man to my right, 25-7. And the late Bob Welsh of Oakland in 1990 at 27-6. That's a called third strike. Hardy goes down.
Well, unfortunately, Bob Welsh has recently passed away. He was a terrific pitcher, and the oddity of our intertwining careers, he was the last man, the 9th man that I faced in that All-Star game in Los Angeles, and I retired 9 straight. And fortunately, Welsh had come into the game occupying the spot that J.R. Richard had, because he started that game against me. And for those of you that never heard about him, he was probably the hardest throwing pitcher in baseball at 6'8½". And when he would stride, seemingly he would stride on the grass. He'd given up 64 hits in 128 innings coming into the All-Star game.
Wow. Caleb Joseph stepping in with a 1-1 count, 2 outs here in the bottom of the 5th in Baltimore. Chris Sale, magnificent. So when you pitch, I mean, you know, there are all kinds of stories about Earl Weaver going to the mound, having a conversation. You know, Jim Palmer has documented some of the brief conversations, one-way conversations Weaver has had with him. Held up. Did he go around? Yes. 2-2. So when Weaver would make a trip to the mound with you, Steve, what was that like? What was that experience like?
Most of the time, it was after he had made the call to the bullpen. If he wanted to tell you something, then he sent Ray Miller out, who was the pitching coach at the time.
Called strike 3, and he knew it. Caleb Joseph. So again, for the 2nd time of the ball game, Sale retires and strikes out all 3 he faced. We go to the 6th in Baltimore. Scoreless, White Sox and Orioles.
Subway to 97999 right now for your chance to win 6 meals from the Simple 6 menu from Subway. Message and data rates may apply. Subway, eat fresh.
Chuck Swirsky filling in for the Hawk Ken Harrelson, along with Cy Young Award winner back in 1980 in the day in Steve Stone. We're going to have a lot of discussion about Steve's career here in Baltimore because he has a lot of friends that still work here in the ballpark, although you pitched at Memorial Stadium.
Yeah, a couple of folks made the transition from one to the other. This is a much nicer ballpark. In fact, this is a beautiful ballpark with that warehouse out in right field. You can see the city skyline. That's terrific. The biggest difference is Memorial Stadium was known as a pitcher's ballpark, and this is just a great hitter's ballpark.
Eaton, Cabrera, and Abreu this inning for the White Sox. Eaton 1 for 2. He singled in the third. Had him batting .240. Here's the 3-0 pitch.
Getting on base to lead off an inning in a 0-0 game in the 6th would be very big. That's why this at bat by Adam Eaton is a very important at bat as far as the game goes, because you got some pretty good hitters coming up behind him.
Tyler Wilson has walked Adam Eaton. So the White Sox again with a leadoff runner on, as was the case last inning. Chuck singled, stole second, but the White Sox could not plate him. That's going to bring on Melky Cabrera. Cabrera 0 for 2 with a ground out and a pop out. We're in the top of the 6th in Baltimore in the first of 2.
Melky's one of the toughest guys in the league to strike out. That's why this situation would be ideal for a hit and run. You stay out of the double play. Melky's only struck out 14 times in 177 at bats. Last time they chose a straight steal with J.B. Shuck, but that was with Gordon Beckham hitting. And also, Melky's been struggling. That's one of the ways you can get a hitter to concentrate more if he knows he has to make contact, but you don't usually do it on the first pitch.
Melky hitting .242. The runner takes off. Sliced down the left field line, and that's going to drop for a base hit. And that's all the way to the wall. Eaton turns the corner at third, headed to the plate. He is in for the Sox first run. Well called, Steve Stone. Beautifully done. And how about Melky Cabrera? That's his first extra base hit in what, 88, 89 at bats?
This one slicing away in right field, and I think Wilson missed a pitch out. That's why I said you don't throw the hit and run sign on the first pitch. You saw where Joseph was. He was getting ready for a pitch out, and he was going to throw out Adam Eaton, convinced that he was going to go. Well, Wilson, a youngster, missed the sign, and Melky sliced it into left field. It's a 1-0 game, and for Cabrera, RBI number 17. The hit and run works to perfection because of a mistake. And the Xfinity Speed is Adam scoring from first. Speed Replay is brought to you by Xfinity, your home for the most live sports.
That'll bring on Jose Abreu, who is 0 for 2 with a ground out and a line out. And Jose has a chance now, with nobody out here in Baltimore in the top of the 6th, with the White Sox on the board leading 1-0. Wilson, the pitch. 1-1. We featured Jose in the pregame tease, and his bat has come to life, especially with hitting some power. Hit a 3-run shot in the ball game in Toronto. Also had a triple in yesterday's ball game.
Pretty amazing, his second triple of the year.
1-1 pitch. Now, do you see right now at this point, when you observe Wilson, that he's laboring a little bit?
I don't think he's laboring. In fact, I think that it's third time through the order. I think the guys have seen him now, have an idea how fast the fastball is, which way it's going to move, and how his curveball and slider works. I just think it's familiarity with major league hitters to a young pitcher.
Called strike on the inside corner, 2-2.
But I also think the biggest break of the inning was the fact that Wilson missed the pitch out sign, and that's why Joseph went out to talk with him, because he was getting up and ready to go. Suddenly the pitch is in the zone.
76 pitches for rookie Tyler Wilson from the University of Virginia, from Lynchburg, Virginia. Inside, 3-2. 1 run, 4 hits, no errors for the White Sox. No runs, 2 hits, no errors for the Orioles.
There you look at some pretty impressive numbers so far. But the third time through the order, at least the first 2 guys have plated the run, and Melky's at second with nobody out.
Here's the 3-2 pitch. Swung on, and he popped him up. Davis calls off Cabrera and makes the grab.
Visit participating Chicagoland Great Clips salons by June 5th for a Great Clips Summer Sweepstakes. The grand prize winner will throw out the first pitch at Mullet Night on Friday, June 19th. Plus, you get White Sox tickets and a pregame patio party. Purchase your tickets today by visiting whitesox.com or calling 866-SOX-GAME.
So Adam LaRoche, who doubled in the second, was thrown out at third, trying on a sac fly to Adam Jones. He's 1 of 2. Cabrera at second with 1 out here in the 6th. Well, if you're Buck Showalter, you got to be pleased with what you've seen of this rookie.
Well, knowing that you have a doubleheader and it's a long day, even with that 26th man you activated, yes, I think Buck Showalter is ecstatic where Wilson has taken him to this point. But I think he is thinking about the bullpen now, wanting to protect the youngster and stay in this game. In talking with Buck before the game, he's always been very entertaining, but he also believes that his Orioles are going to win it. And when you look at how things are bunched up in the East, you can believe that any one of those teams can win it. Any one of those teams can finish last.
Showalter, the American League Manager of the Year a season ago when Baltimore won the American League East. There's a fly ball. Adam Jones that ball's going over his head all the way to the wall. That's going to plate Cabrera for the White Sox. Second run, a gorgeous piece of hitting by Adam LaRoche, his second hit of the afternoon.
Our Mazda replay will show you just how strong Adam LaRoche is, because he gets this ball off the end of the bat. You got a great center fielder who doesn't allow much to get over his head, but this one does. Sprinting back, he can't get to it. And so it's a 2-run game. Third time through the order has proven to be the charm. And that's Dave Wallace, longtime pitching coach, sometime executive in the game, but always one of the great minds in the game of baseball. They're very happy to have Dave Wallace. They certainly respect him, and one of the most knowledgeable guys around, and he's pretty much done it all in this game.
That leads me to a question for you, Mr. Stone.
Certainly.
Let's see what happens here with Alexei. Chaz Rowe warming up in the bullpen, a right-hander for Baltimore. White Sox have scored 2 here in the 6th with 1 out. Ramirez is 0 for 2. He flied out and grounded out. Ground ball to short. Hardy slings it over the first. And we have 2 out here. So what makes a great pitching coach? And who was the best pitching coach you really helped mentor you?
Great pitching coach is 1 part psychologist, 1 part mechanic, and 1 part father confessor. So it takes 3 different talents to be a good pitching coach. You know when to stay away from a pitcher, which is really important. It's as important as knowing when to actually go talk with a pitcher. And now we have a lot of tape that they can look at. Before, it was the eyes of the pitching coach that helped a lot. But you have to have the trust of your pitchers. You have to realize that there's some guys you're not going to be able to get through to. You can't make everybody the same kind of pitcher that you were, because that's a huge mistake. It's knowing when to say something and how to say it. How to give some guys a pat on the back, how to give some guys a kick in the butt, when to do it and how to do it is of critical importance. And Don Cooper does a great job of that. You just have to get to the point where you take a look at a guy and you can see exactly what he's doing wrong and stop it as quickly as you possibly can. Good pitching coaches don't really need tape. They have it now. We've got a lot of tools we didn't have before, but a good pitching coach with great eyes is invaluable.
Chuck takes a ball. It's 1-2 with 2 outs here in the 6th inning. RBIs by Cabrera and LaRoche have propelled the White Sox and Chris Sale to a 2-0 lead here in the 6th.
Best pitching coach I ever had was right here in Baltimore. His name was Ray Miller. He was one of the better pitching coaches around.
Here's the 1-2 pitch from Wilson. Swung on. Here's a ground ball to Cabrera at second, and he retires. However, the White Sox come up with 2 runs here in the 6th and have taken a 2-0 lead in Baltimore. The bottom of the 6th with the Orioles and White Sox. White Sox have grabbed a 2-0 lead.
And both pitchers already have done what their managers wanted them to do, which was take the game deep. Limit the outs the bullpen has to cover in the first game, because you know you got a second one coming. Baltimore just got through with a series with Houston. They felt that Houston was the best team they had seen to this point. And we're going to get a good close-up look of the Astros in a 3-game series, which is going to kick off tomorrow.
And the Astros can put some runs on the board, especially the home run ball. Cabrera is 1 of 1. He had a base hit, but Chris Sale, he's got the mojo going. He surrendered only 2 hits, and he has struck out 7. We're in the bottom of the 6th. 1-2 count.
That one fouled right into the Oriole dugout. There you look at some very impressive numbers. Last time out, Chris walked 1, struck out 10. 20 different times in the course of his very young career. He's had double digits in strikeouts, and you would assume that this is going to be number 21.
Yeah, Chris Sale, as you mentioned, Steve Stone with 20. Ed Walsh with 17. You faced him in a twilight doubleheader one day.
Oh, Ed was just a terrific pitcher.
Yeah, and by the way, you know, I did some research on Baseball Reference. I didn't know you pitched against Babe Ruth. His hometown is here in Baltimore.
Only twice. I thought Babe might have been a touch overrated.
Well, that was the scouting report, right? Barely missed. Juan Pizarro with 15. Alex Fernandez with 12.
Yeah, Chris has done a phenomenal job. His stuff has always been great. And here comes a changeup. Let's see if he keeps it low and away.
Swings and misses.
He got him. He kept it away. Nice call by Tyler Flowers as he called the changeup on a guy who was a little over anxious. And he has him way out in front of it.
Yeah, I'm going to make a statement about Chris Sale, Steve, and I know you cover and you love all the sports in Chicago. You are a true Chicagoan who follows the Bulls and the Blackhawks, and by the way, we wish all the best for the Hawks in Game 7. Cold strike. I think Chris Sale is the most unappreciated athlete in Chicago.
Well, I would think if he's not, he probably is right up there with a couple of other people. That one skied, but into the seats.
You understand where I'm coming from?
No, I do, and I think a couple of different things. Number one, when you're not getting into postseason play, a lot. That happens. Also, Chris is a young pitcher, an excellent pitcher. I think he hasn't had a lot of support over the course of his career. It's just one of those things. As he picks up strikeout number 9 on a snapping slider. This is the best slider he's had all year. And I think it's a combination of his arm getting stronger and the fact that it is hot and humid. It's conducive to throwing good breaking ball because the air has more moisture in it. The seams can grab a little bit better, and by far the best slider Chris has had.
I mean, having this vantage point, we have a great location here in Baltimore at Camden Yards. Almost feel like you can go out and touch, you know, Chris Sale. That's how close we are. But it's a delight. It's a pleasure to see this man operate on the mound, Steve.
Chris has the ability each and every year to win the Cy Young Award. And he's had this ability since he was drafted. Sox got him in the first round, the 13th pick overall. He went to the major leagues that year, worked out of the bullpen. And the reason why he dropped to 13, and even the Sox didn't believe that he would drop that far, was the fact that he was very thin.
Here's Paredes with a fly ball to left. Ramirez along with Cabrera, and Cabrera's going to take it as Chris Sale has been outstanding. 9 strikeouts, and we're through 6 here in Baltimore. The White Sox with a 2-0 lead.
I'm here with my partner, Chuck Swirsky. Those of you who are very aware know that this is not Hawk Harrelson. Chuck is kind enough to sit in. Hawk is having a minor procedure, and he's going to be back when we get back off this road trip in his stead. Chuck is doing a terrific job, and Chuck, You're here in Baltimore on a very hot and humid day. This is very, very Baltimore. What do you think so far of the job of Chris Sale?
I love it. I mean, he's in complete control of the situation. Looks very, very poised as usual, Stephen. From one pitcher to another, I know how much you appreciate him.
I appreciate the job he's done because the slider's the best it's been all year, and I think it has something to do with the same kind of weather that he grew up in Lakeland, Florida. So we've got a new pitcher on the mound. His name is Chaz Rowe. There you look at the numbers, on for just the third time. He hasn't given up anything yet. And he takes over from Tyler Wilson, who did a very nice job. Gave up just 2 runs. He'll leave trailing 2-0. And when you give up 2 runs on 5 hits, normally in those games, you're going to come out on top. But not so with your mound opponent being Chris Sale, who's given up absolutely nothing.
Gordon Beckham at the plate. We have a 1-1 count on Gordon. He's 0 for 2, a ground out and a strikeout. White Sox with a 2-0 lead here in the 7th. In a fast-paced game, one would expect that, of course, with Sale on the mound, who's sailing through the Oriole hitters. It's a Baltimore ball club starting the afternoon 2 under 500, 2.5 behind the Yankees in the American League East. The White Sox with a win yesterday within 4 games of the 500 mark, trailing Kansas City and now Minnesota in the Central by 7.
Pretty amazing that the Twins are tied for first place. Wow.
The ground ball by Beckham. Cabrera diving and can't make the play, but Beckham is reached on a base hit.
He made an excellent play just like that to end the first inning. He was able to throw out Abreu at first on a very similar play, diving to his left. He was rolling over and he made the throw. This time Gordon hits it off the end of the bat, once again diving to his left, only this time when he turns over to throw, he doesn't have control of the baseball. This is a huge effort. Doubtful if he gets Beckham anyway. But then no ball.
So Tyler Flowers at the plate for the White Sox with Beckham on. Nobody out here. What do you expect to happen here with Flowers at the plate? Can he lay down a bunt?
You got a 2-0 lead. He won't lay down a bunt. I think Robin used the hit and run to perfection one time. Might not be a bad time to break it out again.
This is the 3rd time in the ball game the White Sox have had their leadoff man on.
Now, the difference between Tyler Flowers and Melky Cabrera, Melky usually makes some contact. Not that Tyler can't or won't make contact, but this is a good time because you very rarely see a pitch out 1-0.
Flowers takes a cold strike, 1-1.
Rowe was called up from AAA on May 24th. Made his debut that same night.
Spent some time with Arizona and the Yankees. 2-6-0 for the White Sox. They scored twice in the 6th. Orioles no runs, 2 hits, no errors. 1-2 count on Tyler Flowers.
Well, Rowe was studying persistence. He spent 11 minor league seasons. 136 starts. He came out of the bullpen quite a bit. Just about 500 in those 11 years, and he stayed healthy, stayed around, and here he is back in the big leagues.
How many years were you in the minors, Steve, before you got that call?
2. I was very fortunate coming up with San Francisco. A lot of their pitchers had gotten old. And
now, who was on that staff when you joined them as a rook?
Well, we had a couple of guys who went on to have decent careers, not great careers. Juan Marichal and Gaylord Perry.
Flowers 6's bat on the ball. Is that going to drop? No, nice hustle by Cabrera.
Everett is a lifetime shortstop, which means he's got very good range. I think we're seeing it here today. That was a terrific play. Normal second baseman. That's a base hit as Tyler tries to drop it into right field, but Cabrera goes back, makes the play, and has the awareness to quickly get it back to first base. Gordon is back in, however.
With Sanchez at the plate, Carlos 0 for 2 with a ground out here in the top of the 7th with 1 out. Chaz Rowe in relief of Tyler Wilson. Did a very good job for Buck Showalter. Beckham takes off at a foul ball.
And there was the hit and run.
So I want to get back to so Marichal is on your staff.
Marichal and Perry were the top 2 starters. I was invited as a non-roster player because I'd had a couple of pretty good years. And in those days, I had a very big fastball. The Giants were fastball infatuated. They gave me an opportunity. And unlike these days, I threw 37 springtime innings. Guys now are throwing 16, 17, maybe 18 if they're starters. Maybe they would get to 20. Nowhere near 37. So again, a different era, and you know that's just how it was. I got very fortunate.
Now, were you in Austin? I mean, you get the call. Here you are. You're a kid out of Cleveland. You go to Kent State. 2 years in the minors. And here you are in a staff with 2 future Hall of Fame players.
I think what made me a little more awestruck was turning to center field and seeing Willie Mays chasing down my mistakes.
Here's Sanchez. And it's going to be caught by Pierce. Beckham returns to first.
We had 4 Hall of Famers on that team. Mays was my center fielder. Willie McCovey, a Hall of Famer, played first. We had Barry Bonds' dad, Bobby Bonds, who was a member of the 30-30 Club 5 different times. We had all kinds of talent on that team. It was a great time to come to the major leagues, a great team to come up to, and then spent a couple of years there and got traded to the White Sox. I was traded to the White Sox in the winter of '72. I was there in the '73 season with Wilbur Wood and Dick Allen. They had a pretty decent team.
I think so. Adam Eaton 1 of 2, singled in the 3rd, walked, scored a run in the 6th. So, did you ever have, like, in the clubhouse, hey, Willie, can I get your autograph?
No, I did not. I still do not have his autograph to this day. I don't know if players do much of that these days. We just didn't do it at all in those days.
Well, you heard a lot during the Derek Jeter parade in his last season.
There's kind of a different awareness of what these autographs will mean down the road than I think they were in our time. And many times rookies kind of stayed away from the veterans in those days. You had to establish the fact that you were going to be on the club.
On a 2-0 pitch, J.J. Hardy gobbles it up. Throws over the first to Davis. That'll do it. Here in the 7th inning, 2-0 White Sox in Baltimore on WGN TV.
Except for this one at night.
Yeah, we were in the first of 2 here in Baltimore. Chuck Swirsky, my man Steve Stone. who does a fantastic job, one of the greatest analysts, in my opinion, in all of sport, regardless of baseball, because you learn so much during the course of a ball game about the nuances of baseball. And this, I'm not going to lie to you, Steve, this is a tough, tough sport. Not only to play, obviously, when you step in the box and the guys throwing off-speed pitches and 100 miles at your chin.
I wouldn't want to face Chris Sale today.
No.
The Chris Sale of today is as good as the Chris Sale we've seen all year, and he's going to kick it off with Adam Jones as Chris is going through the middle of the order.
Adam Jones 0 for 2 with a strikeout and a flyout.
Chris has made 83 pitches. Most of them, the overwhelming majority, have been strikes. One of the knocks against Adam Jones when he came into the league was that, well, he never walks. I mean, he swings at everything. And they were going to Buck Showalter by saying, well, why don't you get him to walk more? He said, I want him just exactly the way he is.
Inside.
This is a guy that usually hits around 300. This year he's walked just 8 times and 174 at bats. But then again, he's fanned just 22 times.
Swing and a miss. And when he's struggling, he says he needs to go to the opposite field more, to right field.
And I think that's what most hitters feel like. I think one of the things that might be plaguing him, I know he's got a sore knee, not sore enough to keep him from playing as he plays just about all the time, but it's not 100%. And if you don't have a solid base, it's tough to really get crisp swings. I think that he had a solid base. I think that fly ball he hit in the 4th inning might have been out of the ballpark.
3-2 pitch, swung on. There's a base hit to center field for Adam Jones. His first hit in 3 at-bats.
Talking with Adam before the game, Buck Showalter called him in when he was a young player. And he said to him, look, son, you're going to be the face of this franchise. You're going to be the best player on this team. And there are times when you don't hustle as much as you should. You're going to set an example for everybody else. And I want you to be the example for this entire team. You're going to hustle each and every play you're out on the field. And Jones has taken that seriously, and that's what he does. Because everybody's going to look to the best player and how he acts, and they're going to emulate that. And with Adam Jones, you don't have to worry about anything less than 100%. And it was established early in his career by Buck Showalter.
Only the 3rd hit for the Orioles this afternoon. Delman Young at the plate. He's 1-2. He singled in the 4th. It's a 2-0 count on Young with Adam Jones on first.
And this is where Delman is looking for that low fastball. He would prefer it middle in if he had a choice. And Chris wisely throws him a straight change.
Here.
Of course. That one didn't miss by much. And Tyler Flowers had a word with Toby Bassner. Thought he might have gotten that. Tyler trying to ease it back over the zone, but didn't get the call.
3-1 pitch, nobody out. Sale goes to first to keep Adam Jones tightly near the bag. Chris Davis on the on-deck circle. And it's a 3-2 pitch coming up for Sale.
Good changeup. He kept that ball away, and Young looking fastball all the way was out in front of it. That's where he's worked them. In, out, and mostly down, but not hittable down.
Big pitch. Swing and a miss. He struck him out.
Certainly helped that he went well out of the strike zone for that one.
Sale's 10th strikeout. So now that give him 21 games with double-digit strikeouts.
Well, you figure Delman Young, who has walked a grand total of 3 times this year because of swings just like that, was not going to walk that time.
Sale's season 9 strikeouts 11. That was on May the 12th in Milwaukee. That's going to bring on Chris Davis 0 for 2, but he can hit the long ball, folks. Grounded out in a flyout. There's one out, 1-0 count. Jones at first. Chris Davis, Steve, back in 2013, just a couple of years ago, hit 286. He had 53 home runs and drove in 138.
I saw a lot of them. And he is one strong guy.
2-0 pitch. And then last year, Steve Stone, it plummeted 196, 26 homers, 72 RBIs.
What he said was he started to swing at everything. He started to believe that he could hit every pitch out of the ballpark. When that happens, good professional pitchers are going to take advantage of that.
The ground ball to second. Sanchez over to Ramirez and puts his foot on the bag for a force.
Not a good throw by Carlos, but Alexei was able to get up and down. And the reason he's able to do that is that Adam Jones hesitated trying to screen Sanchez, so he was late getting to the bag. Fortunately so, because if he is hustling down there, he had a chance to beat that as Alexei had to go up.
We'll bring on Steve Pearce. Pearce 0 for 2 with a flyout and a strikeout.
It's going to be a fastball away. Let's see if Chris gets it away.
Oh, and 1 to count on Pearce. Again, this is the first of 2 in Baltimore. Here in the bottom of the 7th. 2-0 White Sox. Fouled off to the right.
Actually, for a game that was not scheduled, it's a fairly decent crowd, and they are wearing a lot of orange.
Yeah, the Orioles have been such a fantastic franchise in the American League. They did hit, a window where they were really struggling, Steve. Another foul ball. They won their first World Series back in '66 against the Dodgers. They swept LA. And, the final 3 games of that series, they shut out LA. They got some great pitching. In fact, that was the end of Sandy Koufax's career in one of those World Series games. Here's the pitch. 1-2. But they had it going in the late 60s. They lost to the Mets in the '69 World Series, won the World Series the following year, beating Cincinnati in the Big Red Machine. Went back in '71, lost to the Pirates.
And don't mention '79, please.
I will not. That had to hurt. You were up 3-1.
Oh, yes. Yes, I was aware of that.
Sorry.
Oh, no.
I know you're sensitive.
It was just, yes, it was one of those things where we were wearing the small ring and the Pittsburghers were wearing the big ring.
2-2 pitch with 2 outs. Swung on. There's a ground ball. And it's going to be foul.
That year I was so sure we were going to win. My folks, I invited them to Pittsburgh. We went 3-1. We went to a restaurant. It's called Poli's, and waitress came over and she was giving me all kinds of problems. Pittsburgh's going to come back and beat you. And I said, yeah, right. She asked me if I would sign a menu before I left, and I said sure, and I signed it. 1979 world champion Baltimore Orioles.
You
when
did
we were
not.
up 3-1. Yes, I did. And so if that young lady still has that menu, it was worth nothing then. It's worth less now, but it is a souvenir.
Oh my goodness. Held off to the right. So you signed all the best Steve Stone 1979 world
champion Baltimore Orioles. Yes, I did indeed. That is a classic counting your chickens before they hatch, and they never did hatch that year.
No, they did not. Chris Sale in control. 2-2 pitch, 2 outs.
And a real good at bat by Pearce as he's battling Chris. 106 pitches to this point, and Pearce, who has usually been a tough out, is an unusually tough out for a guy with outstanding stuff.
Man on first. 2-2 pitch. Swung on. Ground ball to third. Barehanded by Beckham. Did he get him? No. Couldn't get the ball into it. Or did he? The ball.
No, the ball got away, and he originally called him out. But Toby Bassner, after Wayne Kirby pointed to first base, the home plate umpire, who had a much better view because Larry Vanover was blocked out. Larry Vanover called him out. Toby Bassner, the home plate umpire, overruled him, as he should, because the ball got away. A great play by Beckham. This is a do-or-die bare-hand play. He gets it across. And unfortunately, Jose has the ball trickle away. So now Don Cooper is going to come to the mound to talk with Chris Sale. And because of the angle, Larry Vanover could not see that it trickled away, but Toby Bassner did. So it does go as a base hit.
So, Steve, now you have runners at first and second. A conference on the mound for Coop. Your thoughts?
He's handled J.J. Hardy twice, and he's handled him well. And I think what Don Cooper is telling him here is, look, number one, you got enough to get him. Chris is probably going to say yes. And he probably is going to tell him, let's have the best you've got. It's a hot, humid day. This is going to be the last inning you go, as Jake Petrichka, who's been in ball games the last 2 days, is up and throwing once again. But that's pretty much how that particular conference went. The infield wanted to know exactly how they're going to work Hardy. Don Cooper reminding him what the scouting report on J.J. was. And now whatever Chris has, we're going to see the best he has.
Nonetheless, that was a fantastic play by Beckham, who's throwing some big-time leather at third. J.J. Hardy swings at the first pitch. Cabrera shields from the sun in foul territory, makes the catch. Well done by the White Sox in Chris Sale. We go to the eighth. Sox with a 2-0 lead in game one here in Baltimore.
Through 7 innings, just 4 hits, 10 strikeouts, nary a walk. His 21st career game with 10 or more strikeouts. It's brought to you by the Honda Dream Garage Sales Event, now at your Honda dealer.
So we lead off now in the top of the 8th with Melky Cabrera. Cabrera 1 for 3 with an RBI double in the 6th.
And I'm not sure because my memory eludes me, but whoever picked Cabrera today as their pick to click, okay. I got to believe with this extra base hit, I mean, the deal is done. It's sealed. 4 drive of the game came on what should have been a pitch out and wasn't. Fortunately, Melky, it was a hit and run. Drove home Adam Eaton, slicing the ball to the opposite field away from Pierce, the second time that's happened today.
In the dirt. 1-2 count in the O's pen. Brian Mattis is warming up. We discussed Mattis and his situation with the substance. Still waiting to hear from Major League Baseball whether or not he'll be officially quote unquote suspended. He did appeal. 1-2 pitch. Swing and a miss. But he struck it out. So just getting back to that for a moment, Stephen, if you don't mind, with Mattis and
Sure.
that whole situation with substance. Do you think that it's prevalent in today's game?
I think, Chuck, from the beginning of time, since they invented pitchers, they invented guys who are looking for an edge one way or the other. And down through history, again, this is just from anecdotal experience and a lot of people talking to me about what they did during the course of their careers. There is so much you can do to a baseball to make it move. Some guys raise the eyelets of their glove. They have eyelets where the leather fits in on the heel of the glove. They'll take pliers and they'll move them up just a bit and scrape the baseball with the eyelets. Some guys have files. Some guys have sandpaper. Some guys will put sandpaper in the palm of their catching hand, and then when they take the glove off to rub up the baseball, you scrape it. Now, you work in the bullpen and a scrape pulls to the opposite direction. So if you put the scrape on the left side of the ball, it will pull right. Put it on the right side, it'll pull left. Put it on the top, it'll sink. Put it on the bottom, it'll sail. That's what guys will do with sandpaper. Files are the same thing. They'll make a little deeper groove, and then they'll pretty much pull the same way. Guys have used slippery elm, and they've used KY, and they've used a lot of other things, including soap, to throw what they call a dry spitter. But that ball sinks. It comes in, looks like a split fastball.
Abreu, a hard shot to J.J. Hardy. Goes over the diamond to Davis and went out.
So you've got those.
2 out, rather. Go ahead, Steve.
You've got those, and then you have guys that have gone to the mound with keys, actual keys sewn into their glove, and that will make 3 or 4 different deep grooves in the baseball. So that's going to be it for Rowe, who does a pretty good job. And Buck Showalter has gone out, so he calls to the pen, and we'll step out and be back after these messages. Field is accessible from the 100, 300, and 500 levels. Learn baseball fundamentals in the batting and pitching cages, running areas, and more. It's all from Xfinity, your home for the most live sports. So we've got Brian Mattis coming in the ball game. He's the guy that has a pending suspension. He's appealing it.
Do you think Major League Baseball should legalize a substance that has been approved by the sport, by the Players Association, so at least it's universal?
I think if they decide that a pitcher feels good with a better grip, they can use a certain amount of pine tar. Now, again, my friends have told me that there's a clear pine tar when it's heated up, not the normal pine tar that the hitters use. And they allow hitters to use pine tar to get a better grip on the bat. Pitchers, when they use pine tar, are looking for a better grip on the ball. It doesn't distort the flight of the ball like a spitball or any of the other things, the grooves, the sandpaper, anything else, but it just allows a pitcher to get a grip. They give you a rosin bag behind you, and it doesn't do anything for you unless you mix rosin with suntan lotion. Again, something else my friends told me.
Here's LaRoche, who's 2 of 3. This ball is going to be missed.
Well, normally that's an easy play for Machado, but because of the severe shift and a difficult effort by Caleb Joseph, Adam has another life. Now, Machado, playing almost a straightaway shortstop, really has very little chance to get over. So it becomes Caleb Joseph's ball, and he has to go a long way for it. Mattis was the #1 draft pick of the Orioles, the 4th pick in the country back in 2009, and they thought he would be a great starting pitcher, and that aspect of it hasn't worked out for him.
Here's the 2-2 pitch with 2 outs. And that's driven into right center field for a base hit. LaRoche with his 3rd hit of the afternoon.
A good first game for Adam as he's starting to swing the bat a whole lot better. And he hits into the same shift. He's going to be asked to come out of the ball game for a pinch runner. But with a couple of doubles and a single, it was a big day for Adam, and Bonifacio comes on a pinch run for him.
Two outs here for the White Sox in the top of the 8th. 2-7-0 for the Sox. No runs, 4 hits, no errors for Baltimore.
The 2008 draft, where Mattis was taken 4th. Tim Beckham, who's now up with Tampa Bay, was taken 1st. Pedro Alvarez, who's doing a good job with Pittsburgh, was taken 2nd. Eric Hosmer, the 3rd pick in that draft for Kansas City, and the 5th pick, former MVP Buster Posey for San Francisco. That was the same draft that the Sox got Gordon Beckham at number 8.
Was that draft probably slotted correctly, although Posey certainly has had a magnificent career.
Yeah, I would think that if Tampa Bay had it to do all over again and they needed a shortstop at the time, they would have taken Buster Posey at 1. But San Francisco was catching one of the slower Molinas at the time, and Buster Posey was a no-brainer for them. As Tommy Hunter loosens in the bullpen, and Kansas City thought they got a good one in Eric Hosmer, and it's turned out that way. He keeps getting better and better.
1-1 pitch with 2 out. Bonifacio at first, pinch running for LaRoche. Alexei, he is 0 for 3. Couple of homers, 20 RBIs.
First go round for Mattis, he was a starting pitcher. He went 5-2 in 8 starts. That was in 2009. He made it to the big leagues. Then in 2010, he started all season, went 10-12. And then when the starting thing didn't work out for him, that was pretty much the last year he started was 2012. He moved into the bullpen full time, and he's been there for the last 3 years.
One and two outs here in the top of the 8th as Ramirez stays alive. Sox scored twice in the 6th inning, and Chris Sale has been tremendous.
Lexi would love to get one on the inner portion of the plate, because the way they're playing him with Adam Jones maybe a couple of steps to right center, there is a gap in left center. And that scores Bonifacio from first. It doesn't even have to go to the wall.
Bonifacio running, and it's fouled off.
Most likely, and they haven't announced it yet, most likely there's going to be around a half hour between games. That's usually the case.
Then we're going to have a young man make his major league debut for the White Sox in Game 2.
Chris Beck, who was a 26th man in an earlier doubleheader but didn't get in. He's going to go out there and he's going to pitch against another rookie. A hard-throwing rookie. In fact, they told us that Wright has one of the bigger fastballs on their team.
Let's see what happens here. 1-2 the count, 2 out. Mattis against Ramirez. And they cut Bonifacio. And he is out at second. That's going to end the inning. We go to the bottom of the 8th here in Baltimore. White Sox with a 2-0 lead.
Wintrust Community Bank. Go to wintrust.com/White Sox to learn more. Wintrust Community Bank, member FDIC. And Chris Sale obviously convinced both Don Cooper and Robin Ventura that he's got something left, because he's back out there on a short leash, I would assume, however, as the bullpen continues to throw. And Chris, who just has great stuff, all ready to deliver pitch number 109.
And Bonifacio remains in the game as the DH for LaRoche, who had 3 hits this afternoon. 2-7-0 for the White Sox. 2 runs, 4 hits, no errors for Baltimore. Here's the pitch to Caleb Joseph, who's 0 for 2 with a fly out and a strikeout. Sale quickly delivers off to the right, and we're at 0-2 on Caleb Joseph. Really have to, appreciate Chris Sale. He just gets the ball back from the catcher. He's all business.
He wants to work as quickly as he can, and that's a great way to keep your rhythm.
And also, I would assume the fielder's sharp as well.
There's no doubt that fielders love to play behind guys that get the ball and throw it. You just stay more on your toes. You're more alert. You make better plays. That's how it's always been. That's how it always will be. There's been a few guys who worked tortuously slow that were successful.
As
Rick Sutcliffe worked very slow, was a great pitcher. Gaylord Perry had to work slow because he had to load up the spitter, so he had to move, 6 different spots on his body to try to get it in one of them. And it's true. I mean, he was a tortuously slow worker because he had to convince the hitter he was loading up each and every pitch, even though he wasn't.
well, Chuck Tanner basically undressed him, did he not, in the ball game?
Yes.
Here's a 2-2 pitch. I mean, was it known throughout big league ball that he was doctoring the ball?
It was always known. There was an umpire.
Now, how come you couldn't catch him?
Well, because he didn't put it in the spots that you would think he normally would. He had it on the back of his neck, and it looked just like sweat because he did sweat like a wildebeest. So it's kind of one of those things where, where does the KY start and the sweat end? And they didn't check there.
Swing and a miss for Caleb Joseph.
But there was an umpire by the name of Chris Pellicutis who told him, I know you're throwing a spitter, and when I'm behind the plate, I'll call everyone a ball. So good fastball at 96. Chris has still got something left. And he strikes out Joseph for the second time. He now has 11 of them today, and he does not have a walk.
I mean, the strikeouts are impressive. The fact he hasn't walked a batter, equally so.
I got to believe that, again, this is the weather he grew up in. For pitchers, historically, they throw much better when it's warm and humid. The pitchers that are in shape love this weather. The pitchers who are out of shape don't because they'll wilt earlier. But historically, Baltimore's had great pitchers. They've always been in shape, and this has been the type of weather where your slider and your curveball act much better in humidity than they do normally, i.e. Arizona, where they don't have good sliders and curves. In spring training, guys, there's very little, if any, humidity. Doesn't grab the baseball. And there you look at some really impressive numbers by Chris Sale.
1-2 count on Cabrera. He singled in the third. So that's what, but wait a minute. See, you're talking about the weather, and I do agree with you. I mean, Sale from Lakeland, Florida, used to the Mother Nature, but you're from Cleveland, and you won the Cy Young.
Yeah, but that was different. We had really warm spells in the wintertime. No, I always loved warm weather for whatever reason. I always threw better in it.
Sale kicks and delivers. Swing and a miss. He struck him out.
Make that 12 strikeouts. And here comes Robin. Apparently, he thinks that Chris has had just about enough. And there is no doubt he needed a long outing. He needed a good outing. And he got both from Chris Sale today. So he gives him a pat on the chest. He's got some very appreciative teammates. 12 strikeouts, a season high. The Oriole fans are giving him a standing ovation.
Pretty
that
classy.
Is very classy for a fandom. So as he descends into the dugout, we're going to step out and be back after these messages. They're celebrating Southpaw's birthday on Saturday, June 6th. Southpaw will donate all toys to Ronald McDonald House Charities. Visit WhiteSox.com/SPBDay for information and specially priced game tickets. The Paw celebrating a birthday. And Chris Sale not yet celebrating this one. He's done a brilliant job, but he knows that there's 4 outs to go, and Zach Duke is coming in to get at least one of them. He's 2-2, his ERA 2.84 on for the 21st time, been called on to save 1 game, and he's been successful. Odds are overwhelming that David Robertson is not going to be available, but then again, maybe he's asked to come back in. We don't know.
Yeah, Robin Ventura said he's going to play it by ear, but probably likely not. But he said you never know. Machado is 0 for 3, struck out in the 6th. One of 12 Chris Sale strikeouts, a season high. He pitched a gem of a ball game. Bags empty here with 2 outs in the bottom of the 8th, of the White Sox with a 2-0 lead in the first of 2.
The oddity about this one is that Chris Sale fanned every guy in the lineup at least one time, except the guy who's the most prone for strikeouts and the lefty-lefty advantage. He didn't get Chris Davis at all.
Duke, the veteran, on the mound.
That one right off his foot. And he's going to walk that one off.
For those of you keeping score at home, and I know you are, we mentioned the 12 strikeouts, a season high for Sale. His career high is 15, set back in 2012 at Tampa Bay. 1 ball, 2 strikes, 2 outs. We're in the bottom of the 8th here in Baltimore. White Sox trying to win their 2nd straight. Manny Machado hitting .274. 2-2 count. That's in the seats.
And he's hit safely in 26 of his last 31 games. Still trying to get that consistent stroke. Back a couple of years ago when he had the 51 doubles.
2-2 pitch. Grounded foul. Again, we have to keep in mind, as Steve mentioned, and you undergo surgery on both knees. He's still 22 years young. He's got a great upside, folks.
It's a whole lot easier to rehab and come back when you're 22 from a couple of knee surgeries than it is as you get to be 32.
Duke with the delivery. And Machado remains alive here. This compacted American League East. Yankees with a 1.5 game lead on Tampa. Baltimore 2.5 back. And the Jays, who won 2 of 3 from the White Sox in Toronto. The Jays and Boston 4 out. Called strike 3. And throws the bat, and he's ejected. Manny Machado is out of the ballgame. Steve Stone, he took a cold 3rd strike.
No, he charged him with swinging.
He checked up. Yep, you're right.
And Manny thought he had checked up, and that's why he throws the bat. That's an automatic ejection, and Machado has done this before. His temper has gotten the most of him, and he's gone, and it's 2-0. it to unlock offers and rewards. The official U.S. Cellular Field Ballpark app for your iPhone and Android smartphone perfectly complements and personalizes your trip to the ballpark. There's maps, mobile check-in, seat upgrades, and more. Download the app today or visit whitesOx.com/ballpark-app. And Tommy Hunter comes into the ball game.
And Ron Flaherty has come on, replacing third baseman Manny Machado, who was ejected on that check swing.
Flaherty was a member of the Chicago Cub organization. He just got back off the disabled list, and he appealed to first base, and Larry Vanover says yes, he did indeed swing.
And this Oriole crowd lets him know about it too.
Flaherty normally is going to platoon at second base when Jonathan Scope comes back, and there's a replay. It could have gone either way, and it went Hunter's way.
1-2. Tell me a little about Tommy Hunter.
Tommy Hunter came out of the Texas organization. He's a hard-throwing right-hander. He used to throw a little bit harder, and at times they used him as a closer. Then they decided that that probably wasn't the spot for him. They took a starter who wasn't all that successful by the name of Zach Britton. They moved him to the bullpen. He wasn't a closer at first, and then they allowed Zach Britton to close and found that at 96 miles an hour, he's got a great sinker. And so now Zach Britton has taken over as their everyday closer. He's saved 12 games. His ERA is .245. And Britton, when he pitches, it's tough to hit the ball in the air. So he'll get the double play and keep the ball in the infield. And that one got a piece of Joseph.
Lexi making sure that Caleb's all right.
Tough position. You take a beating back there, and your responsibilities are many. You got to know every one of the opposing hitters. You have to know every one of your pitchers, and you have to be able offensively to contribute and execute. Tough job.
Alexei with a foul ball to right. Nice grab by Davis. He covered a lot of ground, Stephen.
That's a tough play with your back to the infield. Normally a play that the outfielder would make. If not, the second baseman is going to make. But because Cabrera was playing up the middle and Young was deep, it was left to Chris Davis, who made the over-the-shoulder catch.
That's going to bring on J.B. Shuck. Shuck is 1 for 3 with a single in the 5th inning. We have one out here. In the top of the 9th, the White Sox holding on with a 2-0 lead. 2-7-0 for the White Sox. No runs, 4 hits, no errors for the Orioles, who took 2 of 3 from Houston. And this is the first of 2. And Steve, you mentioned what, usually about a 30-minute window between the games?
That's the usual case. We don't know exactly how this one is going to play out, but I would assume that's going to be it. And then Chris Beck will go against Mike Wright.
Shuck now has 5 hits over the past 3 games.
And now into the count, they have moved the team into a shift.
One and 2, one out here in the top of the 9th in Baltimore. Tommy Hunter, the delivery, and that's a base hit up the middle.
See, for me, that's just the opposite of what should be done.
What should be done?
I think what has to happen is you want to play that shift, play it early in the count when a guy is thinking about power and he's more likely to pull. When he gets to 2 strikes, Shuck has done this twice today. Gets to 2 strikes, he's trying to protect. That was a routine ground ball to Hardy if he hadn't shifted. As it turns out, Hardy is nowhere to be seen. Takes it right back up the middle for his 2nd hit of the day. And again, I think Buck, who's a great manager, shifted himself into another base hit for J.B. Shuck.
And of course, you know why J.B. is having such another nice ball game, don't you, Stephen?
Well, because he's playing for one.
Yeah, and who is his pick to click?
Oh, that doesn't count. You didn't know that. He's got to get, I told you last time, when you're picked to click because you are sitting in for Hawk, that means that's 2 of you.
But Hawk is channeling you.
Yes, 2 of you you need at least 3 hits. So if JB gets another shot and you get the 3rd hit, I think it would be terrific.
You're tough.
Well, it's tough love, Chuck.
And it's tough filling in for Hawk.
It's,
I will say that Hawk is big shoes to fill. I'm just trying to hold the fort until a week from tomorrow when the Hawk returns with Steve at a ball game when you open up a series with Detroit.
Hawk does indeed have big white shoes to fill. I noticed you're not wearing white shoes.
No.
What's
I'm wearing
the color of that is bland?
Yeah, it is.
Is that what they say?
You know, the Wallabies from the 70s. I don't buy shoes much. It's a 1-0 count with Beckham, who's 1 for 3, a single in the 7th.
What do? You have them donated to you?
The secret's out. How did you find that out?
Well, you know, we do our research. I don't know who's your partner.
Runner going. Here's the throw. Shuck dives in the second, and he is safe.
Second stolen base of the day for J.B. Shuck. So he certainly is making the most of his opportunity. His 4th stolen base of the year. He's now 4 for 4. This is not an easy catcher to run on, but he got such a great jump that he's able to get in ahead of the tag. And if you're going to go in hard and late, you make sure that the foot replaces the hand.
There's a base hit for Beckham to left. Shuck is going to hold up at 3rd. Beckham at 1st, and the White Sox are in business here in the top of the 9th with 1 out.
That's Gordon's 2nd hit of the day. So Gordon getting his opportunity because of a foot ailment on the part of Connor Gillespie. This is a slider on the outside corner. Pretty tough pitch to pull. And Gordon went out, drove it into left field, and because there was only 1 out, JB had to hold. That means he couldn't score, as the Sox desperately looking for an insurance run against Tommy Hunter.
Flowers at the plate. He's 0 for 2. Got hit by a pitch in the 3rd. White Sox have now collected 9 hits. So the hitting coming alive for the White Sox over the past couple of ball games after being shut out in the opening game of the Jays series by Hutchison on a 4-hitter.
Drew Hutchison had absolutely his best game of the year. And when a pitcher's on top of everything, not walking anybody, mixing all of his pitches, and threading the needle with his fastball as Hutchison was, you're just not going to do much with it.
Flowers with a swing to Hardy. The flip to 2nd. Over to 1st. Not in time, and run scores.
RBI number 10 for Tyler, who runs pretty decently for a big man. Shuck scores, a stolen base paying dividends. Gordon Beckham goes in as hard as he can go in at 2nd base. And Cabrera, who is a shortstop by trade, trying to flip it from the side and avoid Gordon Beckham at the same time. Can't get it there in the air. Big run scored.
Huge. Sanchez 0 for 3, flied out in the 7th. If you just joined us, as far as pitching, Chris Sale was tremendous. His earned run average was .593 back on May the 6th. Steve, it's now .366. He's allowed only 6 earned runs in 31 innings. Sanchez swings and a fly ball, a lazy one to short left field. Pierce with the catch, and we go to the bottom of the 9th. The White Sox, however, add a run, and it's 3-0 White Sox here in Baltimore.
And it's celebrating 13 years. Watch every out-of-market game live or on demand. You can see real-time highlights, live look-ins, pitch tracking widget, and more. Blackout and other restrictions apply. Visit MLB.tv for details. So with Zach Duke still in the game, trying to nail down a 4-out save, he's going to go right through the middle of the Oriole order.
Paredes, Jones, and Young. Paredes 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts against Sale. And the first pitch from Duke. Oh and 1, bottom of the ninth. Now an 0-2 count.
Paredes, a quality hitter, completely held down by Chris Sale. A couple of strikeouts and a fly ball, and he made him look bad.
A little chopper down the third baseline, foul. Flowers having a conversation with Zach Duke. What would they be discussing, Steve, at that point? About just
pretty much, are you seeing anything from this guy? And any suggestions Tyler might have. What a catcher has to look for is if a guy makes an adjustment, he gets closer to the plate or he moves back off the plate.
Well, whatever he said, it worked.
He might have said, why don't you just throw him another slider because he hasn't hit one today. So he strikes out for the third time. A good slider, biting down and in. And Paredes, who is out ahead of everything Chris Sale threw, he's out ahead of what Zach Duke has thrown.
So we have one out here in the bottom of the ninth inning. 3-0 White Sox in the first of 2 here at Camden Yards. It is hot. It is steamy. But the good news is the White Sox with a 3-0 lead. Adam Jones is 1 for 3, singled in the 7th. Here's the pitch by Duke.
With 2 more outs, the Sox will go 2-2 on this extended road trip as Jake Petrichka, who is loose already, it's not hard to get loose on a day like today, is joined by Dan Jennings.
Normally, how many pitches do you need if you're in the pen to get ready? Does it? Is there?
Depends on if you were a starting pitcher before and just moving into the pen, or if you're a lifetime pensman. Closers will get ready. Setup men will get ready more quickly than guys who were starters and now they're filling the first man out of the chute, like Scott Carroll. He's used to a full warm-up. But usually you get out there and you throw them before the game anyway. 15, 20 pitches, sometimes not even that many, if you really have to come in the game. And that was a quick pitch, and he struck him out.
Flowers over the first to Jose. Back-to-back strikeouts now for Zach Duke, for Paredes and Jones, and that's going to bring on Delman Young.
This is a quick pitch by Zach Duke. And the interesting part about it is Buck Showalter was sitting there before the game. I was in his office. He was looking over the advanced scouting report, and he said, oh, Duke is starting to use a quick pitch, huh? And I said, very infrequently, Buck. So there it was, and it was in the advanced scouting report, and that's how intricate those reports are.
5 straight strikeouts for Sox hurlers. Sale had 12 in the ball game, going 7 2/3. 2 outs here in the bottom of the ninth. It's 3-0 White Sox. The pitch. 1-1. Delman Young is 1 for 3, singled in the 4th. One around. 1-2. Slice foul down the left field line.
It was a good job by Tyler Wilson. He came in 1-0. He threw the ball very well. Unfortunately for him, he ran into Chris Sale.
1-2 pitch. Swung on. And a big hit up the middle. And the Orioles remain alive here in the bottom of the ninth. For Chris Davis.
Young finally got a low pitch that he could handle. That's because it was a fastball and not a breaking ball. So he keeps it alive for their most prolific home run hitter.
How important was that insurance run, Steve, in the ninth inning?
If you can score late, pick 1 or 2 up late, you're going to be in pretty good shape. It would be a precarious 2-run lead. Not exactly comfortable, but it's a much nicer 3-run lead.
1-0 on Davis. 0 for 3. This afternoon reached on a fielder's choice in the 7th. One and one. One and two. Two outs, bottom of the ninth, 3-0 White Sox. And here's the pitch by Duke. 2-2.
Tried to surprise him with a fastball after a couple of sharp breaking sliders, but missed on the inside corner. Tyler wants it inside. Zach gets it there, a little too far inside.
Runner going. There's a deep drive. Right field. Looking up, and it is gone.
Eleventh home run of the year. RBIs 27 and 28 for Davis. And the insurance run looming very large right now. And here comes Robin. The only man in the starting lineup who hasn't fanned all day is the guy who just hit a slider out of the ballpark. Zach Duke wanted to keep this one away. Instead, he got it down and out over the plate. That makes it a one-run game. So that will be it for Zach Duke. And we'll step out and be back after these messages. Save a game. Last year he had 14 saves, an ERA under 3. He was a full-time closer for a while. He's got good stuff. This is the 3rd game in a row he's going to appear in. His ERA 4.20 on for the 17th time. His first opportunity to nail one down, and he won't face Pierce. He'll leave the lineup in favor of Travis Snider, a left-hander. Snider hitting .261 with a homer and 9 driven in. You might remember him out of the Toronto organization.
Spent some time with the Pirates as well in his first season with the Orioles. So Davis, who smashed a 2-out, 2-strike, 2-run homer of Zach Duke, with Baltimore within 1. 3-2, bottom of the 9th with 2 outs. Here's the pitch to Snider. Cold strike 1.
This a huge run. The double play that wasn't made, and you can take a look at that slide into second base by Gordon Beckham, disrupting the timing of the play and making sure the throw is in the dirt.
0-2 the count now to Snider. And your mindset is, Steve, as a pitcher, let's not fool around. Let's just go after him. No wasting a pitch.
You've got a guy that has been known to strike out quite a bit. 27 times in 92 at-bats. Very anxious. Most likely will swing at something out of the zone. Keep it away from him.
Here's the pitch. Cold strike 3. Ball game over. Sox win 3-2.
He did indeed keep it away, and Snider could not pull the trigger. So Jake Petrichkin, his first opportunity to save a game, does just that, and a big first win. The road trip tied at 2-2. The Sox come away with a much-deserved victory for Chris Sale. There you look at the final numbers, and we'll be back after these messages.